Hello, kidney warriors! James here from Dadvice TV, your online kidney health coach, and this is Dadvice TV Live. Great to have you guys all here with me. Now, tonight we have a great topic, so we're going to jump right into it really quickly. Now, this show, it's Monday, January 8th, 2014, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. If you're watching right now, like Thelma right here, hey Thelma, we are live. So you guys can type in your comments, type in your questions. Me and my co-hosts will see those, and we may even be able to answer some of your questions during today's show. Now, my guest, you guys know him, you guys love him. He is the author of Learn the Facts About Kidney Disease. And if you're new to the channel, this is the #1 book I recommend for kidney patients. It makes everything easy to understand. It takes out the scary, the worry. It tells you what to focus on, when you probably should start to worry and when you shouldn't. And it also talks about when you probably should start dialysis. And the olden days, people were starting it pretty early. The data shows early is not better. So check out that book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Nobles. You can order it from your local mom and pop bookstore. Bam! Great to help out those local businesses. But my guest, who is the author of that, is Dr. Stephen Rosansky. So please welcome Dr. Ro. Hey, Doc. How you doing?
I'm good, James. I'm good. Hopefully we're going to make some of your viewers feel better tonight about their weight. That's one of my goals. And as James mentioned, I wrote this book for you folks out there. My primary motivation was, as James mentioned, that unfortunately a lot of my colleagues were putting people on dialysis way too early with relatively high levels of kidney function. And I did some of the major research on the issue of at what level of kidney function does it make sense, and when it doesn't make sense to start dialysis. I wrote the book, but the book also is intended to help so many of you not worry about your kidney disease, because most of you are never going to have to worry about dialysis or kidney transplant. And so I guess James likes me to give you a little background. And I am a retired kidney specialist. I started the kidney program here in Columbia, South Carolina, the dialysis program and the kidney program. And I have done my own research. I have over 100 publications, and a lot of my work regarding when to start dialysis and progression factors that affect progression of kidney disease has been recognized by my colleagues. Tonight we're going to talk about what you eat and how much you weigh. And there's been an enormous amount of publicity about weight with these new weight loss drugs. And I hope I'm going to alleviate a lot of your concerns tonight about your weight. So should we start, James? You want to go right into it? Because we got a lot to talk about.
Let's go ahead and start. But before you do, Steve pointed out that I said 2014, not 2024. Now, I wish it was 2014. I would love to be 10 years younger.
Yeah, me too. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, James. Time machine. Let's go back in time if we can.
Yep. But let's go ahead, and I can't wait to hear the good news, because weight has been one of those things that I've struggled with, especially over the last 2 years. The company I worked for, my job of 13 years, the company closed down. I was unemployed, found a new job, had to relocate my family to a different state, juggling 2 homes, buying one while still paying on the other one, then selling it. All of that caused so much stress, I started snacking. Now, I didn't reach for the salty snacks, but carbs were my friend, and carbs are not good for the waistline.
Yeah, well, before we go into your weight and kidney function, we want to talk about what matters. What matters is what James just talked about. We all would like to go on a time machine, go back in time, especially as you get to be my age. I'm going to be 77, James, January 29th. Yeah, so time machine would be great.
Wait a minute. Your birthday's January 29th.
Yes.
Mine's January 27th. I didn't realize you
All
were
right,
2 days after
right,
mine.
Right. Well, we got to have a birthday party. Yeah.
Yeah, we're both getting older this month.
So what really affects your longevity, how long you're going to live? That's really what matters, folks. And does diet affect longevity? Does weight loss help you live longer? Let's start out by talking about what the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force has to say. These are people that are experts in what they call epidemiology, public health, right? They say, I'll quote, "There is no strong evidence to suggest that being higher in weight automatically leads to poor health." Okay, there's no evidence, this is really important, folks, that heart disease, cancer, or deaths are going to be reduced by shedding pounds. This is, if you learn nothing else tonight, get that message. And people who know this research well, and by the way, I've reviewed the research. It's not my area of expertise, but I did a lot of reading about it because I think it's fascinating. People who know the research, what do they say? They say public health may be better served by placing greater emphasis on lifestyle changes, which we beat up most times I'm on the show, and less attention to weight loss per se. That's the first good news, but I'm going to expand on that a lot. And at the end of our talk, I've got good news about the lifestyle thing that I always talk about, which is exercise. So you may be one of the, if you're overweight, you may be a healthy obese person. You could be healthy and obese. What does that mean? That you are obese by the BMI. By the way, BMI, it's something that people don't calculate themselves. You can put your weight and your height, and you can get it online easily enough. And the high BMIs, which they define as being really overweight, is like 30. So if you got normal blood pressure and you've got your cholesterol to target, there's no evidence that you're going to get improvement of your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your triglycerides by losing weight. Everybody says, "Oh, I got to get my cholesterol down. I got to lose weight." No, if you got to get your cholesterol down, drugs. I think that's one area that you should be on drugs, and we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But here's what you all, if you're a kidney patient, most of you have high blood pressure. And uncontrolled blood pressure does shave years off of your life. Okay, that's the thing to be concerned about. It's the silent killer, causes heart failure. You should know this, folks. Causes strokes, causes kidney disease, of course. And small reductions of your blood pressure have large lifespan benefits. And we've talked about blood pressure in many of my prior talks. I refer you to them. And you want to get to your goal around 120 to 130, and that will add years to your life, potentially. And those of you who are on lipid drugs, and most people who have significant kidney disease should probably be on a lipid drug. And you know what the new goal for your bad cholesterol is? I just learned this too. It used to be 100, then they moved it to 70. It's now 55, James. 55, wow. Yeah. And
well, while you're talking, I'm going to look mine up and see where it is. Because I'm on cholesterol-lowering medication, and it works. It didn't take much, and I had no side effects that I noticed.
And these drugs can decrease the problems from what I talk about all the time here, hardening of the arteries, and heart attacks and strokes and that kind of thing. Now, if you're diabetic, there is some evidence that weight loss for you may be beneficial. And I've looked at the research, and the research regarding weight loss and living longer is not convincing at all that it's going to help you live longer. But if you're diabetic, 20-pound weight loss can actually benefit your longevity. And the drugs that everybody's been talking about, the so-called GLP-1s that everybody, and you probably have heard these about these drugs on every media outlet. They were initially designed for diabetics. So if you happen to be a diabetic, and you can get the drug, it may be a reasonable thing. Now, the drugs, again, were initially produced for diabetics, and they found out, hey, wow, people started losing a lot of weight on these drugs. So let's research it on obesity. And as of now, the FDA says that if you are a 30 BMI or above, that you would theoretically qualify for the drug. Or if you're 27 BMI and you have a health condition. And you probably heard, I'm not going to give you the list of drugs, but James, just like we talk about the prills, like captopril, which are the ACEs. Remember, we talk about these over, and the TANs, like losartan, the ACEs and the ARBs. If you're a kidney patient, you need to know about the ACEs and the ARBs, the drugs that have been shown to slow progression of kidney disease, right? These new drugs, the GLP-1s, they're the tides, okay? Like semaglutide, okay? You have glutide. That drug, this is very confusing. It was initially approved for diabetes, right? And the same drug called Wegovy is just a higher dose of the one that they're using for diabetes. There's a ton of these drugs in the pipeline. They're over $1,000 a month, so most people can't afford them. Insurance is not covering them. But they will get cheaper, and there will be oral forms of the drug. But a lot of you are sad. You say you want this magic weight loss drug, but don't be sad. You have nothing to be sad about. You're not missing much, okay?
Except fitting into all the clothes that I have.
Right, of course. This hey, I'm not going to minimize people wanting to look slim, and that's fine. But we're talking about your health and your longevity, and to me, that's what's really important. And James, we've gone over this many times. What are most of your viewers regarding stage? What stage are they of CKD?
Oh, stage 3, stage 2. They're upper functioning kidneys.
Right. To me, if your stage 3 is like 30 to 60 on your EGFR, your magic kidney number, and we've talked about this many times. What do you need to be concerned about? Not kidney failure, not needing a kidney transplant. If you're stage 3, the vast majority of people need to be concerned about your favorite topic.
Hardening of the arteries.
Right.
Keep your heart healthy.
Right.
Which means you're going to live longer and live better, having a good, healthy heart.
Right. And it's not your weight that's going to determine it. So don't be beating yourself up about not getting this drug, about being overweight. And we're going to get into more detail about that. So what are the two commonest causes of kidney failure that people who are on dialysis, what are the two commonest causes, James? Do you know?
Diabetes and high blood pressure that's not controlled.
You got it. So this is it. You can try to get your diabetes controlled and get your blood pressure controlled. Those are the important things for your kidneys. Now, my advice and the advice of the experts, instead of focusing on weight loss, ignore the scale. Put attention on your behaviors. Getting more sleep, getting more exercise, adding a fruit or vegetable to your meal, and controlling your blood pressure and the bad cholesterol, the LDL. That will have massive health benefits. And there's something that's really disturbing to me, James, is the mental health problems with people that are obese. It is a very serious and sad issue. Do you know that 1 in 3 young girls in this world have unhealthy beliefs about eating habits, purging after meals, so unhappy with their weight? And this, our culture has been really bad about obesity. And I'm glad to say, partly as a result of all the GLP-1 stuff, is now we're talking about obesity as a disease, okay? Mm-hmm. They're not saying, hey, you're a bad person. You eat too much. Stop eating. It's a disease. Looking at this, as a disease, to decrease the shaming. There's so much shaming for obese people.
Yeah, especially with social media. I know my daughter, I watch what she looks at online to try to limit it and protect her. She's only 12. But it's all these airbrushed or photoshopped images, unrealistic body types. And it's, I can only imagine what it's doing to all our kids today out there seeing that, let alone the adults having to deal with it. And even me, my weight it's gone up. It bothers me every single night. I think, you know what? I'm going to exercise more tomorrow. And I don't do it. I did join a gym last week. I set myself some goals to exercise more. I want to go to Italy and I want to walk. It's walking. And I'm also in a year and a half going to take my daughter on a school trip to Washington, D.C. That's a lot of walking. So I'm using that as my motivation to lose weight, but more importantly, to get into shape where I can walk for 5-10 miles without needing to take a giant break.
And James, I'll start with you. Stop worrying about your weight. Worry about how much exercise you're doing. Much, much, much more important for all of you listening, as well as James. Your obesity is multifactorial. It's genetic. It's environmental. And so many of you are just figuring out, what's the fad that I need to get into? What's the diet fad? And there's one common thing about diets. What's the most common thing about diets, James? In a year, you gain what?
You gain back. Yeah, yo-yos.
Yeah, and here's an interesting study. 150,000 patients they follow for 10 years. The odds of somebody who's qualifies for the drug, BMI of 30 or more, what's the odds of them maintaining a normal weight? 1 in 100.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be close to zero for 10 years.
Yeah. So, James, what is the most important factor related to obesity? What do you think it is?
Most important factor?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
It's your brain. It's your brain. Why is that? Because the brain is going to tell you that you're starving. A lot of obese people, their brains tell them that they're starving. How did this happen? How did like half the population get to be obese? Because we evolved to be able to survive a famine when we were first hunter-gatherers, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're living around so much food. Every place you look is fast food for restaurant. There's so many restaurants in Columbia, South Carolina. It blows my mind. Every day there's another 10 restaurants opening. The brain's evolution hasn't kept up. The obese patient, a lot of you folks who are obese, the brain thinks you're starving. So stop beating yourself up, James and the rest of you folks. The GLP-1s are great in that sense, in that they help that brain problem. They will no longer get the brain to think you're starving because they work that way. But there's no free lunch. Bad pun for that. A bad pun, okay, for weight loss. These drugs are primarily injections. There's a couple oral drugs. Of course, they're expensive, $1,000 plus. And they have GI side effects. People have nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. And if you're going to be on these drugs, you got to be on them with the lifestyle issues. Otherwise, you're just wasting your money and wasting your time. You need
so just to clarify what you're saying, because I think we got a couple people in the audience that are misinterpreting it. You're saying don't focus on weight loss and the fad diets, but to focus on lifestyle changes and being more active, being healthy, getting your blood pressure under control, managing your diabetes if you're diabetic. That's what you're saying, right?
And then I'm going to get to the next part of it, that you're absolutely right. These are your foundations. The next part of your foundation is what you eat is critical. What you eat. you can look at my book, and I go into great detail about what I call the SMART diet, which is not different than the Mediterranean diet, which is not different than plant-based diets, which your dietitians, I'm sure, talk about all the time. And James has some good dietitians on this show. And you want to eat, and we're going to get deep into this, lots of whole, unprocessed foods, lots of fruits and veggies and fiber. And of course, you want to have exercise in your foundation. Now, weight loss has benefits, James. Of course, it's not, I'm not going to deny the benefits. What, besides looking good, we won't minimize that. People want to look good, and that's our culture. But what in other cultures, being large is attractive, but not our culture. So what are the benefits of losing weight? Can you give me a couple, James? I mean, there are some.
I know for me, I have bad knees. So
Right.
losing weight would help me with walking, going up and down stairs, less impact on my knees. You know, that's the big one. Plus easier breathing. Sometimes I have difficulty breathing. Like, I don't want to sound sad, but if I put on my boots and I got to lace up, I got to take a deep breath to bend over and start lacing them up, because it's difficult to breathe when you're bending over and working on your boots.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny that there are some benefits, but don't be thinking that this is the most important thing for your health and your longevity. You will have less risk of arthritis, physical disability will decrease. If you have to undergo surgery, being overweight increases your risk. And if you happen to have sleep apnea, which James may have, I think, no?
Yeah.
That will improve with weight loss. So there are, I'm not saying losing weight is not useful, but it's not the most important thing for you to function on, to focus on. Let's now dig into the diet and kidney function, because this is a kidney show. What is the biggest risk factor, James, for losing EGFR, losing kidney function? What's the biggest factor?
Are you talking about protein in the urine?
Yay, James. You got it. Yeah. And by the way, I just went to the free clinic today, and my colleagues, unfortunately, are not tuned in to how to measure urine protein. They ordered a 24-hour urine, which is pointless, worthless, and it was inaccurate, I'm sure. You just get a spot urine, and in the urine, the lab will measure the urine albumin, which is the type of protein, and the urine creatinine. That ratio will tell you how much protein's in the urine, and urine dipsticks are kind of not a bad screen as well. What about diet affects your urine? What diet will help your urine protein? Do you have any idea?
I'm going to guess a plant-based diet.
Yes, indeed. It's win-win. Plant-based diet will decrease the thing that is the risk factor for losing kidney function. Now let's go right into the next issue, that people have written books upon books and selling other stuff about low protein. Low protein diets to decrease loss of kidney function. The research on it is crappy. And it's definitely dangerous if you're diabetic to be on the low protein, because you got to eat something. If you're not eating carbs, which are, of course, not good for you if you're diabetic, you got to have protein. And the low protein studies looking at how they affect kidney function, they're small, they're not well done, and they're old. And there's a big problem with all of these studies. The big problem with them is that none of them were done when we had now 4 different classes of drugs that can slow decline of kidney function. Before any of the newer drugs that we've talked about, look at these talks on urine protein and slowing decline of kidney function. I've given several talks about those. And the research on the, what they call the, you know the name, the SGLT2s, we've talked about those a lot on this show. These drugs are miracle drugs to slow decline of kidney function, decrease heart failure, decrease deaths from heart disease. In order to do those studies, James, the patients had to first be on the drugs we know that work, which are the ACEs and the ARBs, right? And then
Right.
they added the other drugs. These low protein diet studies, there are none that looked at the current standard of care, which is these drugs to slow decline of kidney function. So any studies you're going to look at, you got to throw out. And I can almost guarantee that no one's going to do the study, because there's no money in it, on low protein diets after you're already on the things that work. You know what I'm saying? So I think you should focus on what works and stop trying to be on low or very low protein diets, and don't waste your money on the keto supplements. It's absolutely a waste of money. So we talked about the prills and the tans, and I would say that if you happen to be a diabetic with CKD, kidney disease, the GLP-1 drugs are reasonable because they're already indicated to treat diabetes, and you can get them for your diabetes. And if they decrease your weight, that will help you manage your diabetes. In the future, these drugs may be added to the ACEs we talked about, the ARBs, right, to slow decline, the SGLT2s, and the aldo antagonists. The GLP-1s may be the fourth class. This is wonderful. We went decades without having anything new besides the ACE or ARBs to help you folks out there slow your decline of kidney function. And again, the SGLT2s, James puts them at the end of our shows. They're the
They're in the notes, or they will be.
They're the gliflozins, right? We have the prills, the tans, and the gliflozins. The GLP-1s, I'm sure over time they're going to get cheaper. There's going to be oral forms of the drugs, but if you can't get them right now, don't beat yourself up and don't be sad about it. Let's talk a little bit about the food that you're eating and your kidneys. And plant-based diet, Mediterranean diet, my SMART diet that I talk about in my book, it's relatively low in protein. That's what makes sense. Your normal American diet, probably Europeans, maybe not as much, but certainly in this country, we eat like 100 to 120 grams of protein. A relatively low protein diet is 60 to 80 grams. That's ballpark figure. So that is what would make sense for your kidneys. The important thing is what you're eating. The higher your ultra-processed food intake, the higher your risk of getting kidney damage. What are these ultra-processed foods, James? We're going to focus on those a little bit because that's important.
Are you talking like hot dogs and bologna and all that, which are usually loaded with sodium also?
Okay, by definition, here's the deal. An ultra-processed food has ingredients that you're not going to find in your home kitchen. Look at the labels of some of the things you get. Anything that's in a box or a package has probably got a ton of these chemicals in it. They're artificial additives. They are known to cause cancer. They are known to make your kidneys worse. These things are bad for us. But in the U.S., we eat about half our calories are ultra-processed foods. And kids, 2/3 of their calories are ultra-processed foods. And if you see a health claim on a package, low fat, heart healthy, it's an ultra-processed food. Look at all the things it's got on the package. Processed foods take away the nutritional value. They strip away to make it easy to chew, and they strip away the fiber, the stuff that's really good for you. What are ultra-processed foods? And what most people eat: soda, candy, energy bars, fruit-flavored yogurt, frozen pizza, frozen meals, white bread. You want things that are not. You want things that have fiber in it. You want wheat. You want not the white bread. You don't want pizza. You want the white. You don't want the white rice, the white flour. All of these things are processed foods. You try it as much as you can, folks. Eat minimally processed things, fruits and vegetables, even frozen ones are good. And the other thing is, and so look at it. If it's got a lot of artificial chemicals in it, it's an ultra processed food. Try, and James probably knows this, try to stick to 3 meals a day, maybe 1 or 2 snacks. Regular meals will help you from getting too hungry. When you're hungry, what do you reach for? You reach for the ultra processed foods that are cheap and they stimulate the reward center of your brain. You want more of those things. More pizza, more dogs, more chips.
Yep.
And look, and these things have no nutritional value, really. Look at the labels. Try to eat less sodium. Don't obsess over it. Try to eat less sodium, less of the high sodium foods. And all these processed foods are going to be high in sugar and sodium. And if you can, try to get the brown rice, the whole wheat, even whole wheat bread. I mean, it would be nice to get baked bread that has no chemicals in it, freshly baked. But if you can eat whole wheat, whole fiber things, you're going to be better off. And a lot of us obsess about weight, but we die early in a lot of cases, not because of our weight, because of what we eat. We have an average American, we eat about 260 pounds of meat a year. We eat about 120 pounds of sugar and sweeteners a year. And we eat about 39 gallons of soda a year. This is terrible stuff. I mean, you can eat meat. I'm not saying we should all be vegan, but try to decrease the amount of meat you eat. Try to get away from the red meat because that's been implicated to hurt your kidneys. Try to have lean meats if you're going to eat meats. And try to stay away from those sugars and sweeteners. And for sure, stay away from that soda. It is poison. It is just sugar poison. Coke, Pepsi, all of these, soda pops. I mean, they're really bad.
Speaking of the sodas, I've been looking at, a lot of Italy, doing a lot of research on it. Lots of fresh food. They're making it. The food's grown there. So healthy. A lot of the meals that they make, it's the Mediterranean diet pretty much. But when it comes to sodas, they don't allow high fructose corn syrup. They also do not allow Mountain Dew.
Wow, that's brilliant.
I was like,
yeah.
How bad must Mountain Dew be that a country won't allow it?
We should do the same in this country. I mean, it is poisoning people. It really is. It's part of our diabetes epidemic is the stuff that we're eating, especially these sodas and sugars. And here's the other thing about ultra processed foods. They're bad for your brain. They increase your risk of getting dementia.
Ooh.
Yeah, bad stuff. If you can decrease that, that should be your goal. What you eat, not obsessing about your weight, not going to the scales every day. Figure out what you can eat better and get exercise, right? So the plant-based diet not only helps you live longer, it'll lower your cancer risk, your heart attack risk. I can't give a talk, as you know, James, without discussing exercise. And I practice what I preach.
Tons of benefits.
I tell people this. I just told a friend of mine who's a little bit older than me, and he's a sharp guy. And I said, the one thing we have control over is what we eat and our lifestyle, the things that we have control over. And exercise has shown enormous benefits for everything you can imagine, for your brain health, for your heart health. Your risks of any kind of disease are decreased with exercise.
Depression.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And exercise lowers your blood pressure, can help control your diabetes, get your brain to work better, and you're right, James, less depression. Yeah. And here's the other interesting good news thing about exercise. First of all, you don't have to. The recommended exercise is to do. You know what the public health recommendations are.
Is
James?
it 30 minutes 5 times a week?
Yeah, that's right. But if you can't do that, any exercise will be beneficial. And it's amazing. You study exercise, is always like, I have yet to find a study where exercise hasn't shown real benefits. And so here's the most recent good news study regarding exercise. Short bursts. Like, don't take the elevator, climb the stairs at work. Carry those groceries. Don't get someone to carry them for you. You're doing housework, step up the pace a little bit. This can help you live longer. And it was a study that was a recent study where they had people do 3 1-minute bursts of intense activity every day. And sure enough, it lowered their risk of death significantly.
Wow.
Right? So, yeah, you want to try to do, it'd be great if everybody can do, 30 minutes 5 times a day. You just take a walk. And walking is great if you can, go walk around the mall. And this will decrease your risk of dying from cancer, not just cardiovascular disease, but cancer as well. And decrease your risk of diabetes, decrease your anxiety, decrease your depression, and decrease your risk of dying early. We're on this earth for a short time, but you don't want to shorten it if you can help that.
Get as much time here as you can. And it's important that be quality time.
Yeah.
And that exercising helps. And that's one of the things I came to terms with is I gotta get better at my endurance, doing more exercise, more walking, so that I can travel more and not see some steps and be like, oh, maybe I won't go there. I want to walk up those steps. I have awful knees, but I'm gonna work on it, get stronger, lose weight, so that I can go to Italy, do a lot of walking, eat some great healthy food, and take my daughter to Washington, D.C. on her school trip for 8th grade and walk the mall, which is 2 miles long. It's huge.
Yeah. You got to get into the habit, James. It's not easy to get into the habit, but you've got to get into the habit and try to stick with it. And if you can't go to the gym every day like I do, if you can't go even 5 days a week, just do bursts of activity. If there's a way for you to move quicker in your house, in your daily activities, it will benefit you.
Now, I'll tell you one thing I enjoy doing, but I haven't been able to recently, is VR. There is this game called Beat Saber where you've got 2 lightsabers and there's music and you're hitting these boxes. I work out a sweat like crazy listening to Lady Gaga and just going to town, but it takes some room. Now my kids want to always do it and they're walking around. I don't want to hit them or anything. But my wife's going to work on cleaning out a big area in the basement so that I can go down there and do it, because it's enjoyable. I'm listening to good music. And it's a Star Wars. I'm just having a great time, but I'm exercising. My heart rate's up. I'm sweating. I'm moving. I'm getting flexibility. It's a fantastic workout that once I have space, I can do at home no matter what the weather's like. Even if I'm a little tired, I can always pop on the headset and do it for a little bit.
Yeah, and any exercise is beneficial. Any exercise. And you could start slowly. And James, we got some time for questions, it looks like. So
we have so many questions, Doc.
Okay.
I'm going to let you do your thing where you pick some, because I was trying to tag some, but there are so many great questions and many people sharing tips, like walking, like Sandy here. Walks an hour every day. Congratulations, Sandy. You are awesome. That is fantastic. I want to be able to do that.
Okay, so Dawn is asking, other than medications, are there dietary changes that can help lower proteinuria? one of the big misconceptions is that people that have protein in their urine say, well, I got to be on a lower protein diet. No, no, no. That will not help your kidneys, will not help your proteinuria. But as we mentioned earlier, Dawn, there is some evidence that being on a plant-based diet will help decrease your urine protein. Okay, so this is, let's go on. I love to exercise, but severe eczema is keto diet. I am not in favor of keto diets, and there's no evidence that keto diets per se will help your kidneys, just like there's no evidence specifically that exercise will help your kidneys. Although indirectly, let me answer the question. Indirectly, James, exercise will help the kidneys in a couple ways. Number one, it will help lower blood pressure, which will help the kidneys. Number two, it'll help control diabetes, which can help the kidneys. So there are things that exercise can do indirectly to help the kidneys. Keto diet, I do not recommend. I think it's dangerous, especially for people with advanced kidney disease. But if you're diabetic and you can lower the carbohydrates in your diet, and I'm not worried about getting more protein in your diet, because I don't think there's good evidence that if you stay within the 60 to 80 gram, you're going to have a problem. But going on very low carb diet is theoretically beneficial for your diabetes. Okay, let's see. Go ahead, James. You want to pick one out?
I saw someone just ask what. This is a common question we get, so let's address this one. What herbs benefit the kidneys?
There are no herbs that benefit the kidneys per se. And let me back up and talk about how the drugs that we talk about, that there's been several talks that I gave on this show about the newer drugs that are shown great promise in slowing decline of kidney function. These drugs go through very rigorous research. That's not the case regarding stuff that you can buy over the counter. And there are some herbs, and the National Kidney Foundation is recommending that you stay away from them. There are some that can poison your kidneys. My advice in general is stay away from them. No evidence that they're really beneficial. Okay. So, yeah, as far as doing the steps, I mean, people like to have the little devices to measure, how many steps you do per day. Whatever works. If that motivates you, I'm all for it. But I think you shouldn't say, oh, I didn't do enough steps today. Just try to get in your brain that if you have the opportunity, get up and move as much as you can. From the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed at night, keep moving as much as you can. Okay. Yeah, tricycles, speed walking, and someone's talking about Cipro and UTI. Look, this is not the topic tonight, but in terms of what antibiotic to take, there is no better antibiotic, Cipro versus something else. If you actually have an infection in the urine, your doctor should take a sample and see what particular bug grows out in the sample. And that will tell the doctor what antibiotic to use.
And that's gotten a lot faster recently, hasn't it?
I'm sorry?
Doing that. For example, my daughter just went in like 3 weeks ago. They thought she had strep, and they did the culture, and it took them no time to get the results.
Unfortunately,
is a UTI improved faster too, or does it still take a while?
No. Yeah. It takes a while. That's a strep test. It's not culturing out the strep.
Ah.
Yeah. We didn't talk about wine. frankly, this more, unfortunately, the glass of red wine is getting a black eye. There's more and more evidence that even, especially if you're a female, unfortunately, even drinking, a full glass of wine may not be good for your health long term. But I'm not going to be a downer. I'm fine with drinking a little red wine. Someone asked that about the Italian diet, and part of the Mediterranean diet, a lot of olive oil. Olive oil is great to cook with, and red wine is also fine, not in excess. Yeah, someone's talking about using unfiltered honey, and the A1C went from 11 to 5. Dawn, woo. Dawn, I don't know. Let me just talk quickly about any lab test. And one of our kids had a abnormal lab test, and my advice for any time you get a lab test that's way out of whack, and Dawn, your 11 may have been a false 11. It went down to 5. 5 means you don't have diabetes, in my mind. So any lab test that looks out of whack, before you get crazy about it, whether it's your GFR, your kidney function, whether it be your A1C, get it repeated. And certainly, same goes for blood pressure. Yeah, if you got something that's out of line with what you've been seeing in the past, don't let your doctor say, "Oh, I got to put you on dialysis because your creatinine it went up and your GFR went down from, let's say, 30 to 15. We need to start looking at putting you on a machine." Repeat it and follow it. Most of the time, repeating these tests will show a lower result.
Actually, I have a comment here I'd like for you to address, Doc. Here's someone, Zara. I hope I pronounced their name right. EGFR, they got a test. It was 57. Next time it was 61. Next time it was 57. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a pretty darn good lab.
Well, it's a good lab. And I consider that stable because it's staying within that little range.
Okay, and let me be more specific about what the number, how I look at it. Let's say that your number is around 60. Your actual number could be plus or minus 10% easily and still be the same 60. So it could be 54 or 66. So the fact that it's that close, it means that your lab is doing something right. What was the question about? Is that mean?
No, that was just it. And I just want to make sure people understand that your EGFR is an estimate, and it may fluctuate a little bit, but that if it's staying in that little range, that's stable.
It's the same. It's absolutely the same. Again, 10% I think is the same with 10% variation. So 50 plus or minus 5, 40 plus or minus 4, okay, roughly. Someone's asking about nuts, and nuts are great. If you can eat things that are whole foods, and nuts, fruits and vegetables, these are whole foods. These are real foods. I'm all for that. Those are definitely fine for your health. All right. Okay. Okay. So granola is bad. Well, basically, if you can eat, all cereals are going to have a lot of sugar. Most cereals will. And you want to try to get as much whole wheat stuff, fiber, bran in the cereal that you'll eat. And more importantly, if you can get some fruits to add in your cereal to make it tastier, it's a win-win situation. So eating things with fiber, which are lots of fruits, and even if you get the box of the cereals, which will have a lot of these ultra-processed stuff in it, most cereals, but try to find stuff that's got more bran and more fiber. Yeah, so no one's in. Okay. All right. Somebody's talking about phosphate. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, um, the anybody who's got advanced kidney disease knows that we start considering the phosphorus issue or phosphate because it has something to do with your bones and parathyroid. I refer you to my talk on the bones and parathyroid. But in general, if you're eating these processed foods, they're going to also have phosphorus in it, which is not good for kidney patients. So that's another reason why there's an association between ultra processed foods and having kidney problems.
Yeah, that comment came when you're talking about the highly processed foods, and they mentioned that the added phosphates that are in there.
Absolutely, yeah, and there's no um, routine way to check for the phosphorus. If you can eat phosphorus that's part of plants, vegetables, fruits and vegetables, that's much better than having it in these processed foods. Cindy says, worried about the side effects of SGLT2s. Now, the SGLT2s are not something you should worry about. They're not indicated for type 1 diabetics, but yet, and they may still be okay. But if you're a type 2 diabetic or if you are a kidney patient with protein in the urine, these drugs are good. Now, they can lower blood pressure. They can get you to increase your urine output, so some patients can get dehydrated. But as long as you remain hydrated and keep an eye on your blood pressure, there's no worry about SGLT2s. They're very good drugs. You got protein in the urine. They're good for your long-term survival, and they're good for your progression of kidney disease. Slow it down. So someone lost 120 pounds eating too much junk food. Okay, yeah. Well, we're all subject to that. Somebody's talking about having COVID and protecting your kidneys. Listen, unless this is Valsa, unless you are hospitalized, which is serious COVID with hospitalization and in the ICU, is unlikely that you're going to have to worry about your kidneys because of your COVID. And chatting with Alice, diabetic decreased weight. Yeah, I am generally in favor because you can probably justify getting a GLP-1 covered if you're diabetic. And diabetics who lose significant weight can go off their diabetes medicine for sure. And you got another one for me, James?
Uh, I'm sitting here marking some of them.
All right. So here's Zara. Is that the one you talked about?
Yeah.
3A. Okay. 3A. Okay. So I think my last talk, we went into all the various stages of kidney disease. And 3A, and again, this is not hard and fast. It's just a range of kidney numbers. So 3A, the kidney number would be around 45 to 60. They chopped it up into two parts. 3B is 30 to 45. So certainly, if you're on the lower end, 3B, you've got more risk of the heart problems, more risk of progression to advanced kidney disease. Most of you are 3A, and like we've talked about many times, it's unlikely that you are going to have to worry about having advanced kidney failure. But you want to do all the things we talked about for your heart health. Yeah, so Dawn, yeah, we already talked about the low protein diet with protein in the urine. Wow. Someone's on dialysis and having some memory loss.
Yeah.
I don't know anything to advise you other than having your doctor get your mental state evaluated. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Let's get just like maybe one more in.
Okay.
Because for those that are out there, while you're picking one, I am in Michigan. I am a University of Michigan fan. They are in the national championship. Playoff is tonight. They're down in Texas getting ready to beat the Washington Huskies, and I would enjoy getting to jump over and watch the game soon.
All right. Well, we can quit early if you want.
Why not find one more? Find one more.
Okay. All right. Well, Zara has no protein in the urine, so a lot of you. Zara tests her urine protein every 3 months. Okay. What we've talked about on the show is you can get, if you're a kidney patient and you're concerned about whether you've got protein in the urine and whether your protein in the urine is going up or down, whether the drugs you're taking to decrease protein in the urine are working, you can get your own urine dipsticks to get, to follow your urine protein. You can buy them on Amazon. And, it's not an unreasonable thing to do in my mind. And if you are one of these patients with significant protein in the urine and your treatment is decreasing that urine protein, it is likely that your kidney function decline is going to slow down and possibly reverse. So, yeah, not a bad idea to buy these urine dipsticks.
Perfect. All right. That will be our conclusion for tonight's show.
Thank you. Go watch the football.
Yeah, I'm going to go. Hey, we got Sandy here. She's like, go Michigan, go. Yeah. Always great when you see your local team do well. It helps the economy. Everyone gets excited. My wife and I had a restaurant back in Seattle, and when the Seahawks were doing great, business was amazing. And those made wonderful seasons for us. And I wish that for everyone here in Michigan. But I ask everyone, please share the video if you liked it, you found it helpful. Give it a thumbs up. That helps it get recommended to more people out there on YouTube who are looking for real advice from a real doctor, not from somebody just pretending to be one, trying to sell you some pills or something that they have. Yeah, and there's plenty of those out there. We don't need them.
Oh yeah, put on a white coat.
Yeah, and Dr. Rowe, we share these things all the time. He'll send me an email or a video. Like, can you believe what this person said? But anyway, here you're getting great information that's helpful to help you live better, live longer with kidney disease. This is the last scheduled show for January. So for everyone out there who has a birthday in January, like Dr. Rowe and I, happy birthday coming up later this month. I may try to do a video on a Saturday coming up. I do these little hangouts where I just get on, they're unscheduled, and we chit chat and answer your guys' questions, things like that. So keep an eye out. If you're subscribed to YouTube, hit the little bell icon. You'll get a notification if I am live. Thanks again, Doc. This has been wonderful. I'm so happy what I've learned today. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to exercise more often. I do not own a scale, and you convinced me I don't need to buy one. I just need to start exercising, being more active.
Great message, James. That's perfect. Summarizes it. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc, and thank you, everybody. I will see you next month. Doc will be here next month. Jen will be here next month, and I have actually a few other docs that are going to come on next month to talk about some research that they've completed and published. So we're going to learn lots of stuff coming up in February. Have a great rest of the night. Have a great rest of the month, everybody. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.